Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back to your second lesson of this topic, wage differentials, wage or earning, changes in the earning or otherwise. We're talking about how the labor market actually works. So let's take a quick recap from our last lesson and some of the things which were left in the last lesson. I'm going to complete them today for you since there was a short of time and we could not exceed our lesson more than the required time. So we're trying to take a quick relook into the last time's lesson, and the points which were not discussed, we're going to add up in today's session, followed by a new topic which we are going to add on with this. Okay, so the last time's discussion was all about that how the wages are decided and how they are changing. So this should be in our mind if we have gone through this, that usually the wages are decided in the market with the help of the market forces, the demand and supply. They both decide the wages of any worker. Now, labor, which is known as any mental and physical effort. It can include some doctors, teachers, or anybody who's like working physically, giving his efforts or giving his mental effort to earn a reward like wages is known as labor. So we're talking about the labor. This is a labor market diagram before you, and you can see the supply and demand diagram, and which is deciding the wage W over here, and this is the amount of labor which would be employed with the agreement of the owner of the business and with the willingness of the worker. So it's about workers and the entrepreneur, those who are actually deciding together what wage in the market should be. Okay, so moving on to the that how the wages are changing. The only reason which was detected was that it will change if there is going to be a change in the demand of the labor, or let's say if there is going to be a change in the supply of the labor. So whenever in this diagram, where we can see the demand is increasing from D1 to D2 and the supply is reducing from S1 to S2, the leftward. So this is giving a new wage rate, let's say W1, and this W1 is actually a change in the wage, or in a very simple words, is the change in earning of any worker. So why these demand and supply changes? We have the factors, like we have demand for the factors for the demand of labor, and we have the factors of supply of labor. So we just discussed about them in detail yesterday, why there would be a demand of labor change. It can be due to the change in the demand of the product. Let's say if the demand of any product increases in the market, so we need more workers to work for it. I gave you example like any season which comes to in our year, that in which we see that the certain products demand is going to increase. So we are going to increase more demand of the labor. Okay, the another reason can be the productivity of labor. The more the labor is productive, that will be more demanded by the owner or entrepreneur. Okay, and the third one is the price of capital. If the capital which was discussed last time, that it can be assumed as like machineries, the man-made resources. If the price of the capital is decreasing, so it's going to reduce the demand for labor. It's going to reduce because we are going to switch or substitute our resources from labor to capital. So the price of capital, when it's going to fall, it's also going to affect the demand of the labor. Now moving to the supply side, we have a few points discussed yesterday, and today we have brought some more points to the discussion. The supply of labor, how it could increase in the economy and how it could decrease. So the very first point which comes in our mind is about the size of the population. The more country is having a greater number of population, they have a larger resource like labor. So they can be employed, and we will see a huge supply of labor in the economy. Like many countries where the population is so high, then you will easily find labor to work for any business which you like to start. So that's why the most thickest populated countries like China, like India, like Pakistan, they all are thick populated countries, and that shows us that their supply is more in terms of labor just because of its size. So the size of population is one factor which is going to increase the supply of labor. And yes, the wages are going to, if the supply is going to increase, what will be the impact? We can show this in the diagram as well. Let's say if the supply in any country is increasing, so it's increasing from S1 to, let's say, S3. So this S3 is going to put a downward pressure on the wages, and the wages will fall. Like it was W1, or let's say it was W. So the more wages this time, and if it intersects at D2, the new demand curve, so it's going to put a downward pressure on the wage. So any country which is abundant with the labor is going to have lower wages. So that's why if you just raise the list of those countries which have the thickest population, their wages are low. Considering China, considering India, the thickest populated countries, as you will see, the labor is very happy and willing to work on low wages. So number one factor which you can see over here. Number two is economically active group. Which is an economically active group? Now, if there is an active group, there should be an idle group otherwise. So let's find out who are the active. Active means somebody who is willing to work, who is already willing to work in any profession or in any occupation. And there are certain people, the other way around, they are known as economically idle group. Like some people, they are in the labor force, they are in the age group of that working force, but they do not work. For instance, if I just talk about the active group, we assume that the age group is, let's say, from 18 to 60 in Pakistan. Now, this is an economic, this should be known as the working population. This group is a working population, dear students. Now, among these working population, economically active group are those people who want to work. But there are some people who are not economically active. Now, who are those people? For example, like housewives. It can be a student who wants to study further. Let's say he wants to do some postgraduate, like he wants to do an MBA after his undergrad program. So it means that his age might be 21 or 22 or 23, but still he's economically idle group. So just imagine in an economy where people have trend to study further, that means that they are not economically inactive group. They are economically idle group. So it means if any country where people or children or youngsters of above 18, they carry on with their education and they don't want to work, so they are going to reduce. We will see a great reduction in the supply of labor in that economy. But let's say if there are no trends, like in many underdeveloped countries, poor countries, where they are depending upon on a subsistence economy, like an agriculture sector, so they don't need to be that highly qualified. So what happens that as soon as they grow, as soon as they get young, they are finding their jobs in farms or something like that. So it means that those countries where there are no education requirements, or those countries which are based on their subsistence living, they are more contributing as an active group in the economy, and they're contributing more of their services. So any country which have a higher active economically a higher active group is going to increase the supply in the economy. But those who are not actively participating economically, so they are going to reduce the supply in that economy, and hence the wages are going to increase in this economy for the labor. Educational requirements, we did study this about yesterday, that qualification is like a barrier. So the more such countries or economies where we need more education, like most of the developed countries, when there's more technologies, more economic growth is coming up, more higher expectation, a better living standard that requires people to be more skillful and more educated. So the more education requirement is going to stop them again, to hold them back to work for people. So that means that the higher requirements for the education means there's going to be a lesser supply of the workers in the economy. Working age. Okay, already disclosed, this is the working age. You can see that this working start from 18. So I'm placing an example over here. Let's say if any country, people are reducing the age limit of working, let's say from 18 to 16. So it means now we have more people available for work. So reducing the age limit for working, it is going to increase the supply. But if we just put it the other way around, that if the working age is 16, was 16 previously, but now it is increased to 18. So we are going to have a little restriction on the supply. Same goes with the retirement age. When we are retiring from this age group, from the working population age group, so it means if we increase the limit of the retirement age, like I'm putting here as like 60 to 65, like you can should be learning this, that in Pakistan, what is the working retirement age? Anybody? Yes, for your information, that in Pakistan, the retirement age is 60 officially, but in many advanced countries, it's 65. So it means those countries which have a higher limit of or increased limit of retirement age are going to find more workers, or in other words, greater supply of workers. But if we are going to reduce from 65 to 60 or even lower, that is going to reduce the supply of labor in the economy. Okay. The attitude towards work. Now, this is something very important. Like, it's very important that how much we are willing to work. What is our attitude towards work? Are we really very professional, or are we just simply little lazy to work? Like, there are certain economies which we can see that they usually find they have a very less interest in work. Let me compare with you. Like if I talk about the attitude towards work of any developed countries like USA, UK, or China. Now these countries are somehow, we can understand that how people are more professional, how more they are efficient, and how they are lean towards their responsibility of work. So attitude toward works eventually helps you that how greater supply of work or effort or labor you will provide. But if the attitude is negative towards work, the people, they like to go for more enjoyment, they like to go for more holidays, they prefer more leisure as compared to work, then that attitude is going to reduce the supply of labor in the economy. So dear students, the more I'm using the word labor, you must bear this in your mind. We are talking about the effort which people are going to put up. So that's the point. Now, the last point which we see is number of hours to work. Now, that is another reason which is going to increase the supply of labor. Let's say if somebody is working for 8 hours, so it means that he's giving an 8 hours labor to the work. But let's say if the working hours are increased to 8 to 12 hours, so it means that this is going to increase more supply of labor in the market. All right, dear students, so this was a quick recap for you, and now we will see you in our new topic. Okay, so now we are going to see the remaining part of today's lesson. And this is another unit of your textbook, which you could see very clearly that the previous discussion was all about how the earnings and wages change. The answer was changes due to demand and supply. And why they change, we have studied the factors of both demand and supply. And now we're going to concern with a very important topic from the examination point of view, I must say, and that is differences in earning. So the previous topic was changes in earning, and now we are going to find out the differences in the earning of various workers. Like we do see in our economy that some people are earning high and some are earning low. For example, this might come into our minds that an engineer might be earning high, but a foreman, a person who assists an engineer in working, his wages are low. Maybe in somewhere, institute, a financial institution, we see that sometimes people are having higher wages and the same occupation, the same person, same job, but he's earning less. So why the differences are there? Plenty of questions are in our mind. So let's discuss them one in turn, that what could be the maximum reasons to find out why different occupations or same occupations, the wages are different from each other. So I'm going to classify for you into two categories. There are some same occupations. We're going to find out the differences in the earning, or let's say the wages, why wages are different in the same occupation. Same occupation means that the occupation or the job is of same type, it's from the same industry, but the wages are different. Another classification is that there are two different occupations from two different industries, and why the nature of the job, let's say it's the same, but why the wages are different. So we are going to classify in these two groups, and we are going to find out why. So let's begin with the same occupation. Why in the same occupation there is going to be a wage difference? So at the top of this board, you can see I have taken example of the medical sector, the medicine, health sector. In health sector, you can see the doctors are paid more, but the nurses who are assisting them, they are paid less. Now, if we just come across to any hospital or any healthcare, you see that how nurses are so hardworking all the time. They're taking care of the patient. The doctor just comes and take a visit and that's it. But still, why the doctor is paid more? It's just because that they are highly qualified. So the qualification is the very first point, dear students, which actually increase your wages as compared to your people around you who are doing the job in the same occupation. All right. So dear students, that's why it's very much suggested, always been advised that you should be focusing on your studies just to become more qualified so you can earn higher wages. Now, another reason is that an experience can create a difference in the wages. Now, banking is one of an option, which I'm just putting it as an example over here. If you think that there are two same occupation held by two different people in the same occupation, if one is having 12 years experience and one is having 20 years experience, so it's very natural that the 20 years old worker must be having a higher wage, because as the passage of time, your income is increasing. So that is going to be a difference in the wages. Okay, another reason is skill. Now I'm putting finance or account side, like in any business firm, you might see that there might be two accountants, but due to their skills, like if there is an ACCA, it's actually a certifying course for those people who are interested to learn about bookkeeping and auditing in detail. Whereas the B-commerce student, qualified with the B-commerce degree, the worker with this degree or this have a lesser salary. Why? Because both are actually skilled with doing the same job, just to find out and maintain the books. But why the ACCA? Because it is understood that the ACCA candidate or the worker has greater skills to produce. And you know that, you have learned already that the more productive you are, the more you are demanded in the market. And when you're more demanded, then you can ask for higher wages. So the ACCA is more productive as compared to the B-commerce worker, right? Okay, so relationship. Now this is something which we just learned yesterday as well. Let's suppose if there is a business organization where people are equally qualified, they have the same number of years experience, and they're both having the same qualification or skills, but still one of them is earning high. Why? Because he must be having some relationship with the entrepreneur. Maybe let's say he's the nephew of the owner, so he should be paid high, right? Okay, so that is another factor which can bring a change or difference of his wage or more wages as compared to his counterpart, and he could earn a different wage just because of the relationship. Okay, another is discrimination. Now discrimination is something you can understand. It's something you make people separate. You give them more priority. Discriminating, you give some preference to them. Just imagine, if I just take example of our country, if you're hiring 2 engineers with all these things together, except for the relationship, of course. If you hire an American engineer, and if you hire a Pakistani engineer, let's say both have the same qualification, experience, and skills, but sometimes you're going to give more wages to an American engineer. Why? Because this is somehow, we are discriminating that the white people should be paid more. Now, that's not only over here. We see this all around the world. If you just visit the Middle Eastern countries, you can see, let's say, a Saudi would be paid more than his co-worker. So that is again another example of discriminating. So discrimination is something you give preference to somebody just because of his race, just because of his language, just because of his national of that country. Okay, working hours are going to create difference. If somebody's working for 8 hours, and if he's paid, let's say, $12 per hour, so it means he'll be paid with the paid out of his 8 hours service. But somebody, if he's working with 12 hours, that means he's working and for 12 hours, and he should be earning according to his number of hours which he's working. So number of hours working is going to create a difference over there. Okay, in the same occupation, if there are trade unions, and we know that the trade unions, we have this topic to cover in our next upcoming lessons, but right now I need to just quickly to explain to you that the trade union is something, a group which actually works to or represents them on behalf of the workers to raise their wages. This is one of their function. But only those workers who are the members of the trade unions. So let's say if there's the same occupation and somebody is not the member of trade unions, they will not get any benefit. So the member of the trade union is going to have, it's going to expect a difference in its earning just because of the member of being as the member of the trade unions. But if somebody is not the member of the trade union, he's not going to get any raise or increase in his wage. Okay, last but not the least in the list is the genders. Now we have females and males. There can be plenty of reasons why females are low paid. It's maybe just because of some societies, they don't prefer that the teachers should, the females should work along with the males. Like some societies are very conservative. So what happens that if some female really wants to work, they are not demanded. So they are going to find work on low wages. And again, sometimes the females, they earn low since they are not physically strong to work hard. So that's one reason that the employer usually exploits the gender discrimination, that the females should be paid less. So that's about some of the differences of the wages, which we have highlighted, but again, in the same occupation. Now, let's talk about something about the different occupation. Now, in different occupations, we can see that sometimes some occupations are earning more than the other occupation. If I just talk about some dangerous jobs, so there are plenty examples like skyscrapers. You can see a very large and tall buildings. They are very difficult to make and there are high risk of life going. So those who are in the construction business, you can see that they can earn high since their job is high, their job is very dangerous. Similarly, we have examples like the miners, those who are working in the coal mines. They are sometimes paid high since there is a chance of loss of their life. So just to tempt them to work, the employer can give them higher rate of wage. So that's make them like having a different rate of wage as compared to all those workers who are working in different occupations. Okay. Dirty jobs. Okay, now some jobs are considered to be dirty. You can well imagine what are they, and most of the people, they don't like to go for these type of jobs. So what happens? Those who join in this profession, like cleaners or sweepers, this job eventually is something that you find rare workers to work. So they can sometimes also have a difference in their wages. Unsociable hours. Yes. Now this is a game which gives a very small supply of workers. Now what are unsociable hours? Definitely unsociable hours are those in which you are unable to spend time with your family, with your friends, and you could find very rare to live a very normal life like other people do. Okay, now if I just take example like those security guards who are especially working in nights. People working in night shifts are usually considered as working in unsociable hours. So these people have a right and they can demand for higher wages since they are cut off from their routine life. So they are sometimes paid more. Okay, the next point is the government policy. Now, this is something very interesting and it needs a little more explanation. How the government policy can affect the wage differences in different occupations. So it depends upon that what is the policy of the government. Let's say if the government wishes to improve the economic growth of any area of its country. To achieve economic growth, if the government decides that certain areas should be flourished, they should be developed economically, and if the government decides that to promote that area, they are going to give higher wages to that area, the people over there who will work on that site. So that one policy can affect the wages in the economy or in the market. For instance, like if government plans that the Balochistan is a very underdeveloped area. So the government decides with a policy that those who will work in Balochistan in this certain area, they will be paid this much of wages. So that is again, just because of the policy, the wages would be paid more in that area. Okay, and secondly, it could be because of the minimum wage legislation. The government usually set a minimum wage that is above the equilibrium. So it's a higher wage, and if the government announces to increase the minimum wage of certain people, then that is going to be also a factor which could affect a difference of the wages in the economy. Last but not the least is the public opinion. Like sometimes public opinions does force governments to raise the wages of certain people. I'm putting two examples like nurses and teachers. Right over here, we understood that the nurses were so caring for a patient. They're very hard workers. So maybe the public opinion can change this scenario and they can demand higher wages for the nurses. And how they do that? Yes, it's very simple. Like in the democratic economies, the people poll their opinion. They ask the legislators to set a higher wages for such people. Same goes with the teachers. Sometimes they think that the teachers who are the nation builders, they should be paid more. If they are paid more, they will deliver more and they have a right to earn more. So the public opinion in certain professions, or it can be any other profession, which can increase the wage of them, and that creates the difference of earning for them. So summing up today's lesson, dear students, and that is that we learned about the supply factors. We just have a quick recap of the last day's lesson. And along with that, we learned about the difference in the earnings or the wages. And we classified into two categories, like there are same occupations and why they are different in this, working in the same organization, working in the same occupation, and why the different occupations and different jobs people earn different. So here are some of the points before you, and you can take a look at them, and I hope that you will do the worksheet, and that tells me that how well you understood that. So thank you very much, and see you in the next lesson.